What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo spoiler summary, and oh baby, do we have a chapter for you today. This is, and I have to say it, the honest to God chapter that everyone has been waiting for. And if you know, you know. But it truly is finally here, everyone, and I am excited to talk about it. I'm excited to get into the entire chapter with you guys, but always keep in mind that this is just my reaction, review, and commentary of information that is being newly released. This is not a market substitute by any means, and I do want you to support the official release as much as you possibly can, be it buying the physical volumes, supporting the release digitally with a Shonen Jump subscription of the sort, and if you want to make sure you stay up to date on all things Jujutsu Kaisen or any other series you may read weekly, make sure you hit the like button, hype button, subscribe to this channel, and let's get right into the chapter, guys. Before we get into the big reveal that everybody is waiting for and everybody has probably already heard about, and if you haven't, you're gonna be in for a great surprise. In regards to the beginning of this chapter, we pick up exactly where we left off with Mahoraga versus Deborah finally beginning to kick up. As we know from last chapter, Deborah is finally beginning to awaken after being pressed in a fight for the very first time. Now, with something to protect and something to fight against, he speeds his body up to the speed of light, or at least as close as he possibly can get to it in order to beat Mahoraga to death with his bare hands. And we see that no matter how far Mahoraga's adaptation has come, Deborah's speed increasing is something he cannot keep up with. We get multiple insane panels of Deborah doing everything he can to possibly move his body at the speed of light, and it just looks absolutely insane. It seems like Deborah is truly focusing on catching up to the light itself, and even though his body is becoming heavier and his body is beginning to ignite into flames, he is doing his best to throw attacks while inside of this speed. Deborah doing some kind of explanation as now he feels that he's getting closer and closer to the speed of light. He's realizing that the air around him is no longer behaving like some kind of fluid matter, but it actually feels like he's pushing through a solid wall. And now as he gears up for his first strike, he throws a kick that absolutely obliterates a large section of the area that they're fighting in. And right as that nuclear explosion takes off and begins to destroy a huge portion of what remains of the inhuman Makio, Deborah declares this kick for the warriors. Not the football team, but the people who understand this feeling that Deborah is finally beginning to have. Because even though Deborah is realizing that Mahoraga is pretty quickly adapting to his brute force, thinking that Mahoraga's adaptation is probably quicker to plain physical stats than they are to actually complicated curse techniques. But despite that being frustrating and meaning Deborah still has a long fight ahead of him, at the exact same time, this is the very first time that Deborah has ever in his life been able to enjoy a battle. He's able to finally feel some kind of sense of self and understanding of the fun of battle. And Deborah realizes that he wants to do this more, fight to the best of his ability. Everything that he has done before this is nothing in comparison to this battle that he is currently having with Mahoraga. And we get an insane page of Deborah just doing ridiculous dancing moves as if he is literally experiencing the thrills of life for the very first time. Deborah admitting that he's becoming reborn into something that he doesn't yet know. And there is no better way to show this evolution in Deborah than what happens next, because after throwing that kick at Mahoraga, it was so strong, fast, and hot that his leg literally burns into cinders and almost begins to crumble away as if it was ash in the wind. Deborah's first instinct is to cut this leg off, but thinking back to things that he's thought of that the Earthlings have shown him, he remembers that the humans have a way to heal themselves with sorcery. Remembering that when Maru and Cross were both injured, they offered some kind of special reverse curse technique treatment. And while something like that doesn't exist in Samuria's sorcery, Deborah is fascinated that the Earthlings are able to produce positive energy from something like negative emotions. However, it's here as Deborah begins to think about this concept more that he thinks back to Mahoraga's blade, the sword on his wrist that produces positive energy in direct contrast to curse spirits. And Deborah begins to think that that different kind of energy he felt from the sword must have been the positive energy that Earthlings are able to use to heal themselves. And quite literally in a flash, using that information, it's enough for him to piece together the equation that he needs to mathematically form reverse cursed energy. And as Deborah's leg literally comes back, the voltage ramping up even further as Deborah begins to figure out earthling sorcery from scratch. Deborah cracks a smile, admitting that earth sorcery is a lot more advanced than he thought at first. And while the Mahoraga versus Deborah fight is just heating up and getting all the more interesting, we do cut back to the Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo politics side of things as the Sumerians and human higher-ups begin to debate and confront each other with the situation in Tokyo. Cursed spirits are of course beginning to grow, cursed spirits are beginning to spawn more and more, and it's becoming overwhelming. Now, I will admit that we don't have great translations for this portion of the chapter, and there is a lot of dialogue and conversation concerning people like Asuki, other Sumerian people, as well as the Jujutsu higher-ups that we've known and seen, like the young girl and other people. So unfortunately, I really won't be able to do much analysis on this, but let's be completely honest with you. The end of the chapter that everyone is basically focused on isn't the whole politics side of things. It is the fact that Itadori Yuji has finally made himself known and appeared in the series. I'm not talking through statement, I'm not talking through flashback, I mean he is literally here in the flesh. And we already knew that Yuji showing up would bring a level of insanity to the story, but none of us really knew what that looked like. Maybe he was gonna fight Deborah, maybe he was going to get involved to make sure he saved Yuka, or even got involved with Tsurugi versus Maru. Seems like he is actually outside of the building where some of the higher ups and the other Sumerian people are getting into an argument. And as they continue to yell at each other, something that Yuji can even hear from outside of the building, he admits to himself, and keep in mind this is some pretty raw translations, this might not be exactly what he says, but it's probably something to the effect of, "Ah geez, I knew this was gonna happen." And as Mino goes to run towards the building where some of the other people in the higher ups and the Sumerian people are arguing, assumedly I think this is in Tokyo, they probably got into another debacle over killing curse spirits, as Mino is annoyed that these people keep doing whatever they want, but he runs right into Yuji as he's outside the building making a piercing blood motion. But this isn't any piercing blood that we've seen before. This is a curse technique using blood manipulation on something we have quite literally never seen, as not just one, but multiple tendrils of piercing blood spawn in an instant and all immediately shoot through the building, stabbing almost every single person in the building and taking them all out at once. Blood spilling from every single window in the entire building, which it's a pretty large building, so the fact that Yuji was able to completely explode blood throughout this entire structure is insane, and it shows that Yuji has evolved significantly in power. How much? I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see for the next chapter to find out, because Mino is utterly flabbergasted, and so am I. Is this Yuji's villain arc, just casually committing domestic terrorism and killing everyone since no one is right? I really don't know, but I am super curious to hear what all of you guys think. So comment down below, let me know what your thoughts are, and guys, I'm sure it's only gonna go up from here. Make sure you don't miss the actual official chapter review that comes out on Sunday, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.